What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Shredlord
and Jammin Jon.
And we have an album review for you, and one that was definitely anticipated because, well, I mean, this is the world's most blasphemous band, at least according to them. So we're going to go over the latest offering from Marduk, Memento Mori, which is weird because that was the name of the last Depeche Mode album.
And this is not Depeche Mode.
This is definitely not Depeche Mode. This comes out on the 1st of September on Century Media Records. This band formed in 1990 in Sweden. This is, I believe, their 15th album overall. This is also their first one with new drummer Simon Schilling, Frederick Wittigs. I think that's how you say your last name. He left in 2018 after their 2018 album Victoria, which honestly I wasn't a huge fan of that album. The one preceding it, Frontschwein, I thought was another awesome offering from Marduk. And when I'm looking for like a Marduk album, generally what I'm looking for is speed and aggression, and that's kind of like their main thing. Like, they are just like the fastest, most aggressive black metal act out there still. And I was really curious to go over this one because I really dug the singles, and this is definitely a Marduk album.
Now, I've only listened to Marduk maybe a handful of times, so this is my first time to really sit down and listen to a full album at length. And I will say that I am impressed by their tenacity and their veracity as far as just the overall go-get-it is concerned. And this album was actually pretty interesting to listen to from front to back, filled with plenty of little creepy serial killer type sound effects to raw aggression to slowing it down and making love to a groove here now and then.
Not sweet passion love.
No.
Like, more like necrophilia, I think.
Likely. Yeah, this is my first full sit down with a Marduk album as well. Heard him in passing and you know, on like random playlists on Spotify, and just, I mean, it's kind of impassable to not run into Marduk at any point in a metalhead's journey. They are definitely a speedy bunch.
Yeah, this album is definitely like kind of wall-to-wall blast beats minus a few songs in here. A lot of like second wave black metal tropes, high speed tremolo riffs, tremolo harmonies, absolutely voracious vocals. The vocals on here are kind of just disgusting at times. Like, it sounds like there's like blood and phlegm coming up with every cough and grunt. There's some especially dry vocals that pop up every now and then, deep roars. I mean, it's one of the things that I think has always been pretty solid about Marduk is they let you know that they are evil.
And they had some pretty unique instrumentation at times throughout their songs, like something straight up sounding like a foghorn on repeat. You had some crazy Irish funeral style bagpipes. You had a little bit of weird instrumentation to add to the colors of the songs.
Yeah, there's also some interesting atmospheric bits, which atmosphere isn't used all the time here. It's actually kind of minimal because this album's kind of moving.
It's got too much going on to be that way.
They like to pepper in like a few weird soundscapes, like the what I would describe as wet shoveling at the beginning of Blood of the Funeral. And just like some synths, some ambience, and then it is off to the races because, I don't know, I think they're trying to give their new drummer a heart attack on the first album.
I don't know, man. I think that guy just does rail after rail after rail. There's definitely a D battery in either his left or his right butt cheek, I'm pretty sure. Maybe a few of them, because he was nonstop. And a high point of this album for me, and I think the rest of us too when we talked about it, is definitely the drum work. Oh. This guy is playing his ass off and leaves nothing left.
No, I think he probably left bits of himself behind the drum kit, like, you know, bleeding out of his face or his arms. The pace of this album, again, is just ridiculous. It is blast beats all over the place, but some really clever parts too. Like Year of the Maggot has some really cool like turnovers in it that actually turn into a beat. I mean, the rest of it is flying, you know, blast beats, but really cool cymbal accents. But the thing that I really like there is this really cool thrash riff that comes in. Like, it is probably one of the most distinct riffs on the entire album, notably because it's not a cold black metal tremolo, which, believe me, there's a lot of those.
Blood of the Funeral has a riff at the end, too, that was kind of neat, as well as some different riffing in Red Tree of Blood. But back to the drum work, in Marching Bones, there's some really cool tribal drum fills that are incorporated into a beat. Like, it goes from blast to a cool tribal fill to blast to a cool tribal fill, which cuts away from just the breaking norm of blast beats throughout.
Even a little speed punk section.
Yeah,
Yep.
little double time D beat. I do like how it opens up with like marching in the background, and you hear these very dry, throaty vocals come in.
And that fuzzy bass line that comes over the march, too.
But when they do get to the blast, they kind of match up the blast to the march, so it's a little bit slower blast. Like, a lot of this is just fucking Mach 10. Like, it is just going. But it's good to hear some, like, varying speeds on here, because believe me, at times you really need a good groovy break on here. And luckily there are a couple of songs in here that do break into some really cool grooves, and honestly kind of showcases that, you know, when Marduk slows down, which is very rare, they can generate some really epic shit.
As much chaos and non-stop RPM that is on this album.
BPM.
Yeah, BPM, RPM. Yeah, you're right. I feel like some of my favorite moments in this album are when they slow it down a little bit, because when they do throw it in there, it's not often. However, on a track As We Are, which is also the closer, it's just this really dirgy, doomy kind of stomp, and it just sounds so evil. It sounds like the Undertaker is going to come up through the floor and drag you to hell. And I dig that.
I mean, I like the whole change in vibe, especially with the drums on there. Like, they just reverb them up. It almost sounds more industrial, like I was reminded of Godflesh for a moment there. But, yeah, the whole vibe of it is, well, it's kind of a, I don't know, a funeral sort of vibe. And, I mean, kind of fitting. This is one of the last vocal performances on here as a guest for L.G. Petrov, formerly of Entombed and Entombed AD.
Rest well.
Rest well, once again, you fucking legend. But, I don't know, that kind of fits with him being on there, even though his vocals on there are kind of like muffled, almost kind of clean bellows in the background, but it adds a lot to the atmosphere.
Shovel Beats Scepter is a little bit along those lines too. It is an overall slower song and notably more evil sounding. Like I thought they were kind of missing some of that evil flair until that song hit.
Pretty sure you could read the lyrics and like, oh no, this is definitely evil.
Well, yeah, because he opens up the song by saying, "Has he died on you yet?" And there's a bunch of spoken word over War March, and I mean, yeah.
It's a good lead-in, too. Like, it actually kind of builds a bit of that epic vibe, but when it comes in with that slower, more mid-tempo vibe, like, it's a stomp. It's anthemic.
Yeah, and the one thing we didn't talk about yet, too, that I appreciate about this album is the fact that songs go right into each other.
Yeah.
There's no start stop. It's just continuous flow from song to song, and it does it really well.
A constant barrage of evil and aggression.
No interludes, no bullshit.
No, this is, what, a little bit over 40 minutes. And honestly, it doesn't waste any time just kind of getting to the meat of the song. Now, in terms of, like, you know, does this offer anything that a lot of other Marduk albums don't? Not really. I mean, honestly, I would say, again, it's a step up from the last one. That one being, again, a little bit more kind of just lackluster. Like, honestly, I just couldn't really get into that one very much. This one kind of plays it a bit safe in terms of Marduk sound. Like, it lays on the speed, the aggression. It reminds you time and time again that they are the world's most blasphemous band. At least that's, again, what they claim. There's a lot of blasphemous bands out there. But I will say that I think this is a little meat and potatoes at times. Like, it's very straightforward. It's very on the nose. You know, and granted, with that speed, you can say it's meat and potatoes in a blender, like full bore, like completely emulsified. But there are points where the songs kind of drag and you start to feel that the melodies get repeated a lot.
Yeah, I actually think the melodies run into each other quite a bit. There were a couple times, like from Coffin Carol to Marching Bones, even though Marching Bones had some cool drum work in it, the melody I thought was actually the same going in between those two songs. And it lays on that simplistic tremolo melody like a lot.
Yeah, I mean, they make up for it by playing it very aggressively, which is, again, kind of the gear that Marduk has, but you get a lot of, like, the repeated tropes. Like, you get the icy cold melodies, you get, like, the almost folky tinged melodies, and then you get almost those Middle Eastern-ish guitar harmonies that are kind of peppered in there to kind of give it, like, a different sinister vibe. But they're repeated a lot, and when it comes down to the songs themselves, there's not a lot of, like, surprises in there. Like, there wasn't a lot that caught me off guard up until we got down to, like, Year of the Maggot with that really thrashy riff. It is distinctly one of the most different riffs on the entire album. It does not necessarily echo, most of what Marduk does.
Or the lead work in As We Are. You can hear it, it's underneath a bunch of shit, but it's in there. And that's really the only time I've found that leads appeared.
Touching base on the meat and potatoes vibe of it, sometimes the production felt a little bit of meat and potatoes as well. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of sections that everything kind of blends together in this just wall of sound. And then there are other times throughout the album where you can really hear the guitars and drums separately, and that allows the song to kind of have a better vibe to it overall. It almost felt like sometimes, it's probably not, but it felt like different sections were mixed differently, or different songs were mixed differently, or I'm not sure. It felt that way to my ear.
It could be. I mean, it's a constant din, again, especially with it being like mostly blast beats. Like, you kind of had this sort of static sort of beat that goes through a lot of it. Granted, I think the cymbal play kind of keeps it a little bit fresh. You can tell where there's like transitions and such. But I mean, it is, again, on the nose for almost the entire thing.
Even with those little bits of variance in the drum work, I don't even know if it really broke it up that much. Towards the end of the record, I found they picked up a little as far as different dynamic was concerned, but like, even so, in at least the first like 5 or 6 tracks, he's moving so fast that it just kind of blends together.
There is one dynamic that I think gets repeated a lot, and it's like a very like start-stop motif. It's kind of like, a second for the drummer to catch his breath. But yeah, you get a lot of like moments where it just drops out for the drums. Like, you might get like a cymbal accent, and the vocals just gonna puke forth some evil and such, or they isolate a riff. But there's a lot of moments where it just drops out. Like, it's not like a fill or a really interesting transition. It's just stop, back to the blast.
It's almost like false endings. At least 2 or 3 times I counted something that like, all right, are they done? Nope. Going back into it.
Still got more cocaine.
Overall, for me personally, I'm going to give this 3 stars. It was an entertaining listen for sure. I thought it to be pretty simplistic, and maybe that clean of a mix might not have been what they were going for, but I was definitely entertained, especially towards the end of the record where I thought it got notably darker, and they threw in more dynamic as far as, riffs were concerned. Even the drum work got spiced up a little bit. But, I don't have any real major complaints. It just was a 3 for me.
I also give this a 3. I think what it lacked in diversity, it made up for with just raw power and raw aggression. Where the tracks got interesting to me is when they would break the mold, per se, and inject some of these newer ideas, or some of these ideas that were not repeated as much. Things that could have made this album better, perhaps some cleaner production when it comes to separating guitar, bass, and drum sounds, and also perhaps finding 1 or 2 other different riffs to maybe pepper in between to break up some of the monotony of it after a while. It definitely has a lot of good heft, but no matter how good a riff is, if you play it 100 times in a row, it's going to lose its heft. That's just the way it is. But it was still solid. It was evil. It was dark, and it had some very interesting kind of like, oh, okay, did I just hear that kind of moments?
Yeah.
So it was pretty good, man. And overall, I got to give it a 3 out of 5.
I'm going to go with a 3.5, just a little bit better. In terms of like what my expectations were for this Marduk album, honestly, I kind of just expect Marduk. And granted, have they done it better before? Yeah, of course. Like Panzer Division Marduk, that album's a fucking beast, and there's other beasts of albums I can name there. But I think this is them still executing at a relatively high level. I do think it kind of gets stuck in one gear and admittedly plays it a little bit safe, but there are enough, little variances here and there. And one of the things with Marduk is the aggression sometimes can make up for sometimes the lack of different flavors in their sound. This is a vicious album. It moves at Mach 10. If you hate blast beats, you will hate this fucking album. Dead nuts right there. You are not going to like it because this album moves at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and definitely blasphemous, some solid melodies. So if you're a long-time Marduk fan, I think you're probably going to enjoy this. This is just fast, rabid, vicious, aggressive black metal, and Marduk still fucking rules.
So, If you like what you saw here, please hit the like and subscribe button. We would love to welcome you to our channel if you're not a member already. And also by hitting the like button, it lets that algorithm know that you like what we're doing and you want to see more of it. Also, shout out Peyton and Lyric, the new tag team Madden champions. I did it for you. There we go.
Humble. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below, thrallsmetal.com, which is, again, currently under construction, but we're just literally waiting for our shirts and such, and we will let you know when we get them, because we'll do a video, and we will definitely do a giveaway for one, because we're cool like that.
And maybe we can convince John to model some of the new merch in his underwear. We'll work on it.
Maybe. I don't know.
I'm just going to say no.
Time will tell.
Time will tell.
Time will say no, too.
Well, who's time? Because I feel like time is very judgmental.
It should be.
It's got some new boxers. It's pretty fantastic.
Fantastic news. Moving on.
Moving on, last but not least, we are promoting a show October 1st at Frankie's. $25, Revocation, Unearth, High Command, and Entheos. Pretty fucking cool to have metal come back to our hometown, especially having Frankie's open again after lying dormant for 4 years. None of us really knew what was going to happen, but now they're back open, and now they're bringing back metal, and that's a fuck of a show, so be there for sure.
Yeah, be there, be square, and we have all probably taken more drunken pisses in Frankie's than any other building in the entire city of Toledo.
Fair. Some of those pisses were actually in the toilet.
Some of them were in the toilet, but regardless, that place is very important to a lot of people in this area.
It's our CBGBs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, thank you all so much for liking, subscribing, following, all that shit. It means the world to us. It's awesome seeing this channel grow. Tons of releases coming up this fucking month. This is going to be a maddening month. John and I will be gone for Full Terror Assault, but we're going to leave you in the trusty hands of Shred and Miller for some reviews next week. And I know there are definitely 2 really fucking big ones coming out. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Anyway, thank you all once again, and we will catch you later.